serving as your spiritual leader this evening, and we have a very distinguished group in our sanctuary tonight. That's what I'll say. And we're going to begin with an opening nigun that is very special for this time of year. It was in certain communities, particularly in Germany and Austria, sort of parts of Europe where there was a very sophisticated musical tradition. They had special melodies for different poems like Lecha Dodi at different times of the year. And there was a special melody for Lecha Dodi during the Omer, which I haven't introduced here yet, but we're gonna yai dai dai a little bit now, and then we get to Lecha Dodi, you'll be all ready. So here it goes. Yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. That's it. It's like a Mozart waltz. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Okay, Candace. Come on up, Gigi. We're going to light the candles together. Honey, you look so beautiful in that dress. Wow. Okay. And Candace, you can light it. Again, you light both candles. And then remember, we'd make 3 circles and cover our eyes. I'll show you how. You ready? We cover our eyes. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. And then you know what you have to do? When you light the candles, you have to kiss people Shabbat Shalom. So you want to give your mommy a kiss? Shabbat Shalom? I'm going to give you a kiss too. Ask permission about the kiss. Okay. And our service begins on page 130 with Lechuna Ranana. Lechuna Ranana l'Adonai Naria Litzur Yenu Lechuna Ranana l'Adonai Naria Litzur Yishenu Nikadma Fana Bitoda Bizmi Road Narialo Nikadma Fana Bitoda Bizmi Road Narialo Lechuna Ranana l'Adonai Naria Litzur Yishenu Lechunaranana l'Adonai. Naria letzor yishenu. Nekadma fanapitoda. Bizmirot naria lo. Nekadma fanapitoda. Bizmirot naria lo. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. We are going to continue on page 131. I'm pulling a fast one on you, Andrew. We're going to conclude with the bottom 6 lines in Hebrew, Yismechu Hashamayim. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz, Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam, umalo, Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam umalo. Lifnei Adonai kiva, kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel betzedek, ve'amim be'emunato. We continue on page 133. Please join me on the bottom of the page. A psalm. Sing to Adonai a new song, for God has worked wonders. God's right hand, God's holy arm, has won God's victory. Adonai has manifested God's victory, has displayed God's triumph in the sight of the nations. God was mindful of God's steadfast love and faithfulness towards the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth beheld the victory of our God. Raise a shout to Adonai, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. Haril Adonai kol haaretz, pitzchu v'rananu v'zameru. We continue on page 134, Zamru. Zamru Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra. Bechatzotrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai. Yiram hayam umlo. Tevel v'yosheva. Oh, neharot imcha. Lifnei Adonai kiva, kivod haaretz, yishpot tevel betzedek, ve'amim b'meisharim. Back to the 5th line. Yiram hayam umlo. Tevel v'yoshveva, oh neharot imcha chav yachad harim yiraneinu, yachad harim yiraneinu. And on page 135, we close with the bottom 3 lines. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. We can page 136.
Mizmor LeDavid, Havu Adonai b'Nelim, Havu Adonai kavod va'oz, Havu Adonai kivod shemo, Yishtachavu Adonai b'hadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, vayeshaber Adonai et arzei halvanon, vayarkidem kimo
page.
Kol Adonai Chosev Lavotesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Yachol Elayalot, Vayechesof
Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned, sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. We continue with Lecha Dodi on 138.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmiyanu el hamiyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'latif eret v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 5, Hitoreri,
Hitoreri, Kiva Orech, Kumi Ori, Uri, Shir Daberi, Kevod Adonai, Alayich Nigla, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat nekab. Verse 6, Lo tevoshi velo tikalmi, matish tochachi umatehemi, bach yechesu aniye ami, v'nivneta ir al tila, lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Bo'i v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uvetzola, tochem unei am segula, Bo'i chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
we turn to page 140. Let's actually, I want to read this in English actually with you. We'll do it responsively, line by line. A psalm, a song for Shabbat. Now you. It is good to praise Adonai, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. Are your works, Adonai? How very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know. A fool cannot understand this. Like a date palm, they thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. They are full of sap and attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no wrong.
Tzadika tamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yizkeh, shetulim beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu, od yenuvun b'seva, deshenim verananim yiyu, lehagid ki yashar Adonai, tzuri tzuri velo latavo.
That was composed in 1850. Did you ever sing that here? Was there a back in the day? It's old. If Miriam's like, yeah, it's old. Okay. Well, classics never go out of style. Okay. Um, so that was thank you for I'd explained it back in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century Europe. There was a special legato D, few of them used during the Omer, and that was one of them. And it was probably lifted right out of a Mozart, something waltz or something. And that was one of the little things that no one should ever learn, but I learned in cantorial school, so I try to invoke it once in a while during the Omer. It's very churchy, exactly. Um, the Chatzi Kaddish for Mariv is on 144. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'yalmad divarak kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael bagala uvizman kariv v'imru amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach La'alam La'almei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnasei V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha Berichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'meru amen. Okay, page 146. Call to prayer. Baruchu et Adonai Hamevorach Baruch Adon Hamrach Leolam Va'ed Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Va'ed. You may be seated. We continue on page 148. In English, join me. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness away from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Please join me on page 150 for Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Avta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu u'v'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nishmach b'divrei toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha li'olam v'ad ki heim chayenu v'yorech yameinu uvahem nege yomam balayla nege yomam balayla v'yahavatecha
Al tasir mimenu liolamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael.
I invite you to turn to page 152. And just a little word about the Shema, which I just think is worth noting, is we're getting ready to celebrate Shavuot, which is a recognition of the receiving of revelation. Sometimes we say start with the Ten Commandments, and when the temple stood, and this is actually an interesting thing, when the temple stood, they recited the Ten Commandments every morning with the Shema. And the response, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed, it was a call and response between the priests and the whoever was there. And so one of the reasons in traditional Jewish movements you say Shema but not Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed out loud is because Lezecher Korban, in memory of the destruction of the temple. But I was just thinking, like I often think about what it would have been like to sort of relive Sinai every morning in that time, to hear Shema and to hear the Seret HaDibrot, just was sort of amazing. So I just want you to think about that, because we're going to talk about that in my Devar. Just think about the power of that moment as we say Shema together.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Page 154.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam B'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha, u'kashartam liot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'v'hisharecha. Leman tizakiru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'hitem kedoshim leloechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, emet. V'yemunah kol zot v'kayam aleinu ki yu Adonai Eloheinu v'yein zulato v'anachnu Yisrael amo. All this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us. You alone are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You are our sovereign and our Savior, who delivers us from oppressors' hands and saves us from tyrants' fists. You work wonders without number, marvels beyond count. You give us life and steady our footsteps. You performed miracles for us before Pharaoh, signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. Umalchuto biratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe uMiriam uvnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha Nedar b'kodesh, Norah tehilot, Osef eleh. Malchutecha ra'uvanecha, Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe, Zeli anu v'amru together, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov ugelo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Hashkivenu on page 160, a prayer for protection and peace. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom v'hamidenu Shomreinu l'chaim Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shalomecha Taknenu b'etza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu leman shemecha v'hagein badenu v'haser me'aleinu oyev dever v'cherev v'ra'av v'yagon v'harchek mimenu avon v'afesha. Let's read together at the bottom in English. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to renewed life. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our coming and our going, to life and to peace evermore. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Please join me on 162 Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat Lidorotam berit olam Beini uvein B'nei Yisrael Oti le'olam Oti le'olam Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai Et hashamayim v'et haaretz Uvayom hashvi'i Shavat vayinafash. Please rise. Please. The Amidah is on page 164. We'll begin with the opening meditation and then use this time for silent reflection. The traditional liturgy begins on page 166. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Do you know Shalom Rav? Have you ever played that with Gabriel? Let's sing that. Join me on 178. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon, L'chol hashalom, ki atahu melech adon, L'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav. Want to dance with me? Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Can you stay here with me? You can stay here. Okay, so now it's time to say a prayer for people who aren't feeling very well, and that's a Misha Berach for those who are healing. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to read the names of the people in our community that are struggling with
physical, emotional, spiritual, ill health, addiction, all those loss, change, trauma, and um, and then when I'm done reading these names, if there are names that you'd like to include that are not on this list, please do. And also, Aiden, if you'll share the names that are shared over the uh, camera on Zoom. We're thinking tonight about Alan Boyarsky, Andrea Goldberg, Anita Muchnikoff, Barbara Bevins, Barbara Rothbart, Dale Scully, David Trackman, Ed Schechter, Elaine Sokol, Elaine Solomon, Elliot Katz, Evelyn Ma, Florence Nagler, Frankie Ayera, Fred Jacobson, Jerry Feldman, Henry Cohen, Janet Capps, Janet White, Jerry Harmon, Karen Guth, Marilyn Gwastoff, Marlene Pfaff, Michael Hennig, Peter Dernbach, Peter Gwastoff, Rose Kaufman, Sheldon Weisbach, Shirley Zaidman, Sophia Litt, Susan Grossner, Zach Pesner, and Barry Pesner. I'm also thinking of my mother, Arlene Tilchin, and my father, Asher Tilchin. And are there other names to include? Aiden, is there anybody sharing names?
Marlene Importico, Rosemary Conan, Roger Conan, and Ron Sherman.
Thank you. Please join me on page 371 for the Misha Beirach. Misha Beirach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Beirach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Refuah shlema. Okay, so now just some words, some thoughts. This is going to be an interactive Devar Torah after an introduction. So I'm going to let Miriam play Phil Donahue here as she passes the mic around as need be. But before we do the talk show aspect of this, which has to do with Shavuos, I just wanted to make sure, just because this is my only pulpit, to share, to make sure you knew that there's a very interesting sort of challenge for the Orange County Jewish community right now, which is that, with all the hype over what's going on in the world of ethnic studies and things like that, it became sort of a code word in politics. Ethnic studies is, where we learn about cultures other than our own and who shaped, the world, and sort of having a more sort of honest understanding, of like what happened with the American Indians and the Pilgrims. It wasn't necessarily what we learned about in first grade in the 1950s. There's more to the story. That's ethnic studies, and it, covers lots of things. And there's a number of different curriculum that have to do with that. There's, Asian Americans and so on. So, and there's also obviously, Jewish Americans. While we are a tiny piece of the studies of, the ethnic studies of America, we've played a role in the shaping of this country. But there are some ethnic studies curriculum that are actually, some are kind of dismissive of the Jewish people, like that's sort of like we were there and then we weren't, like who cares? And others are actually hostile and are sort of riddled with anti-Semitic notions. So I just want to share with you that the Santa Ana Unified School District approved 2 courses that really have anti-Israel bias. I just want to read a little bit about this to you, and then you can find this article. It's on the Jewish Journal, and and they wrote about this, the LA Jewish Journal. It says Santa Ana School Board passes anti-Israel ethnic course study, so you can write that. So it says one course entitled Ethnic Studies, World Geography, passed by a margin of 3 votes. The other, History 10, Ethnic Studies, World Histories, passed unanimously. So Stand With Us really believes that both of these are problematic. Not yet, honey, because I needed to talk. Okay, she wants my microphone. It says, one talks about colonialism's impact on migration, and the focus of this is that migration will be introduced and focus on the avenues through which colonial empires have maintained hegemonic influence over flows of migration within nations and internationally across the globe through genocide, tourism, wars, neocolonialism, and settler colonialism. And then it provides links to supplementary material, one of which is a January 2020 Middle East Monitor op-ed claiming that the Israel occupation of the West Bank resulted as a massive wave of ethnic cleansing that saw the forced removal of approximately 300,000 Palestinians from the newly conquered territory. There's a lot of that, so it's pretty blatant. So what's happening right now is that the head of Federation, the head of ADL, and many just concerned citizens are actually going to the school board meetings, which meet Mondays and Thursdays, to try to make sure that this curriculum doesn't get adopted. It hasn't, fully been adopted. And this goes into much greater detail than I'm going to go in here. But I just wanted you to know, this is not an issue in any other of the Orange County cities. You also need to know. Just want to point that out. But what I want to talk to you about is the 10 Commandments. So I am of the mind that if it's in the book, it was a problem that had to be written about. Right? No, what's not in here is that you need to kiss your mother goodnight, right? Or that you need it, or sort of like, or you should get 8 hours of sleep, like things that naturally happen. But if it's trying to caution us against something, it's because it's a challenge. So I just want to go through the 10 Commandments, sort of said very loosely. And the first one's kind of mysterious because it's not even a commandment. We could talk about that. But then I want to know for you, which one, like, what feels for you the hardest, right? And, you might say, don't murder feels like me the hardest. But, I mean, there's so many levels of that. So let's just go over these. So the first commandment is, I am the Lord your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt. That doesn't really sound like a commandment, but that's what it is. I am the Lord your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt, which means that you have to have faith in my existence and that I have unfettered power. But it doesn't say that. It just says, I'm the God that brought you out of the land of Egypt. The second one is the prohibition of idolatry. The third commandment is prohibition of vain oaths. You can't say God's name in vain. The fourth commandment is observing the Sabbath. Do no work. And not only you, but everybody in your household has to observe the Sabbath. The fifth commandment is honoring your parents. And there's a lot of discussion about what that means. And I'll share some interesting things that I've learned from, studying. The sixth commandment is prohibition against murder. But then again, what about in self-defense? These are nuances that come up. The seventh, prohibition against adultery. The eighth is prohibition against kidnapping, but it says you shall not steal. Right, but what the art scroll says is kidnapping. I would say don't steal. Let's see what that means. The ninth commandment is prohibition against bearing false witness, and the 10th commandment is prohibition against wanting that which belongs to somebody else, the prohibition of coveting. So I'll just begin by saying that there is not a contest for me what was the hardest one all my life. And I was born jealous. I mean, I couldn't help it. Like, I wanted to be everybody else, and I felt like, like everybody's life was better than mine or whatever. And truly, I had to train myself over decades how to be grateful for my lot with that. So coveting, so hard. I mean, it's so interesting, and there's so many pithy sayings like the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. You don't know somebody else's problem. But I just want to say, so for me, that's the most difficult commandment. Miriam, I'm just wondering for you, do you have a sense of one that you struggle with?
Idolatry is pretty hard because I tend to be a materialistic type of person, even though I don't think I am. I know I am. So in whatever shape or form, I'm always striving to acquire. And in this time of my life, I'm trying to turn that around. But I love my stuff. It's an important part of who I am.
So it's wonderful that's so interesting.
Profanity. I'm from New York. I can't help it.
So right. Right, but which I just want to say, what you're saying though is, really being mindful of, like what we say. I've hurt so many people by what I say, and it's like really, and probably saying things that I didn't mean because I thought somebody might want to hear them, and that's also complicated. But I appreciate what you're saying, Mark. How about for you, Greg?
Not working on Shabbat, the business I've always been in. There's no way I could be not work, so I've missed that basically my whole life.
Interesting. He must be my husband. Because I was going to say not recognizing Shabbat, where I really take the time to appreciate what Shabbat offers us. And I get so wrapped up in everything I'm doing that I just don't really spend time enjoying what Shabbat truly means.
I was thinking the same of you, coveting what other people have, and trying to realize that that's an impulse that no matter how much you have, you're still going to want more, and that's not going to satisfy it. So you have to figure out a way to get out of that loop.
And by the way, I would say that coveting, what's the root of all evil? Really, in many ways, it's, and I'm not saying it's greed and it's envy and it's and that not observing Shabbat. I mean, observing Shabbat. I just want to tie the two of them together. If you really understand Shabbat, what you understand is that the world, just as it is right now, is perfect, and your place in it is perfect, and what your house looks like is perfect, and who your friends are, and it's almost a taste. They say it's a taste of eternity, and if you can really live that, you wouldn't want. It would just. I mean, they all work together. So, but I really appreciate you saying that.
That it's enough. That you can have enough.
That you can have enough, and it's perfect as it is. Bill?
I think it's Shabbat again, and we're having ongoing conversations in our house about what that means and how do we deal with that on a weekly basis.
I'm going to say as I walk by that Joan's father was the happiest person I ever met in my life because whatever he had was the best. He could find a turd in the street. It would be the best turd.
Oh, I love that. That's a wonderful quality.
I think for me it's coveting as well. I think I try really hard to be in the moment and grateful.
You have to talk a little louder. But
Sorry,
Candace
grateful
was
and in
saying
the
that-
moment and grateful for what I have, and yet I'm always striving for more. And when I reach my goals, it's not enough. I'm not content. I want more. So, and Gigi wants to say thank you for her family.
What did Judy want to say?
Thanks for my family.
Oh, you're thankful for your family. Well, I'm thankful for your family. And so
Andrew, you're not getting off the hook.
yeah. No, seriously, but like just think about what we talked about, like, you know, of these things. What do you think is hard between these 10?
I think, well, for me, I mean, I'm not practicing Jewish, you know, but I think for me, just the idea of kind of desiring what other people have, you know, jealousy, like what you were saying. I'm a musician, and like we see, just like I can just say, like in my line of work, like I see people just do the most incredible things, and you can't help but feel like you're so much less like at what you do. You know, that's something I've really had to struggle with, you know, so. Yeah, well, it can also motivate me too. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I do think we want to also distinguish there. I think there's a difference between really admiring and saying that's something I'd like to strive for versus my life won't be complete unless I have what that person has. They're different. I'll just also say that. Oh, Sylvia, do you want to unmute and share with us which commandment you find most difficult for you? Yeah. You know, if Barry or Jean wants to share, we'd love to hear from you, but no pressure. Just a few that I would say. So, you know, Shabbat. So number 4 and number 10. But I would also say that the idea of, you know, I think stealing is actually, you know, there's a lot of ways that we steal. I actually wrote a teshuvah on like ways that people steal innocuously, cheating on your taxes, skimming off the top. I mean, so it's not necessarily blatant like I took your television, but I think that's also harder than many of us know and something that we have to guard against. And I know many people who were raised in homes where their parents were not good to them, and one of the things they wrestled with is what does that commandment truly mean? And basically what the rabbis say, you don't have to love your parents, you don't have to, but you have to make sure that they grow old in dignity. You have to make sure they have food and shelter, you know, even when they can no longer work, just like you would for a child of yours, you know. So it's the basic of what honoring means is very specific, and it's a way for people who really did struggle, you know, maybe they were beaten, maybe they were whatever, but that's, you know, how we do that. And of course, in some ways the hardest one is, I am the Lord your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt. I mean, part of me wants to say, sure you did. You know what I'm saying? Like, meaning, right, do we believe that really happened? Is that a story? That's our foundational myth. But really, where is God? Who wrote that? Who thought about that? It's a very important, you know, piece of how we understand God. So what I want to just wish you all a very meaningful week as we get ready for the holiday of Shavuot. We're going to hear the 10 Commandments next Saturday in Shul. And they're all powerful. They're all important. and worth us really, each of us pondering with depth that probably we don't get to very often. And with that, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to invite Mark to come up now and share some announcements with us. I do. I think this is. Here's the sheet.
Well, I've been to Egypt, and there's plenty of might and awe there, and to overcome that had to be something special.
Right.
So I believe it. Okay, so I have to say this on behalf of my wife and her friends. There's a mahjong tournament on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. There's going to be brunch, pastries, lots of mahjong. I heard it this morning, there were over 60 people coming.
Wow.
So if mahjong is your thing, that's something you could look forward to here. Again, it's Sunday at 10:30 a.m. There's a $45 entry fee, but you could also win a lot of money, get brunch, and schmooze with a lot of nice people. We have our upcoming congregational meeting yesterday, was the forum on budget, which I understand went fairly uneventfully. And the congregational meeting is May 24th, which is a week from Wednesday, isn't it? So that it doesn't conflict with our poker game. And on top of that, we're going to also, at that time, look at the budget and pass it, and also the board. I think those are the main things that we have coming up in addition to Shavuot. And tomorrow, we have coming to us is Professor Nancy Siegel, who's going to be talking, whose life work has been on twins, and talking about twins and Mengele in the Holocaust, which I'm sure will be very interesting. There's a lunch at 12 after services. 12:30 will be the presentation by Professor Siegel.
There's still room.
There's still room if you want to come. I think what's it, $18 to come have a nice lunch. And Nancy puts on, I can say from my experience, she puts on a very, very good presentation. So if you need to find something good to do tomorrow, that's a good thing to do.
Thank you, Mark. And just I actually have a few adjunct announcements to say that yesterday the Jewish Collaborative did, each organization and synagogue in the community has had the opportunity to engage the Weissman Artist in Residence through the Jewish Community Foundation, and we did a tour of downtown Santa Ana, basically some of the darker stories, the lynchings, who shot who sued who when, who ran who out of town back in the late 1800s. It was really cool by Gustavo Arellano, and that was really fun. And then we went to the She They Gallery where Sherelle Horowitz is showing her work, and she's a movement artist. Anyway, there are many other. Her trip is only half done, and so. So, for instance, tomorrow morning she's going to be at Temple Judea. She's doing something at Heritage Point. Just a lot of really interesting things. I'm going to leave this out on the table there, but you should look. These are all fascinating opportunities to engage with this really very interesting and talented woman. So that was that, and there was something else, but I can't remember. So now, before we do Aleinu, we're going to count the Omer. We are still in that period of time between Passover and Shavuot. Today was the 43rd day, so you know where we're going with that. So here is the meditation. I'm ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer as it was ordained in the Torah. You shall count from the eve of the second day of Pesach, when an Omer of grain is to be brought as an offering, 7 complete weeks. The day after the 7th week of your counting will make 50 days. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al sefirat haomer. Hayom arba'a v'arba'im yom shehem shisha shavuot u'shnei yamim la'omer. Today is 40 days, that they are 6 full weeks and 2 days of the Omer. Today begins the 44th day of the Omer. And as you all know, Shavuot begins next Thursday night. Next Friday morning, I'll just say that if anyone wants to go to shul and hear the 10 Commandments before you hear them again here on Saturday, I'll be at Temple Beth Emet, and I'll be with you again on Shabbat. And next Friday night, we have a Yizkor service at 6:30 before the 7 o'clock service. So please join us if your custom is to remember your loved ones on the festivals. And we're going to continue now with Aleinu on page 560. Oh, Marcia, this is so upsetting. 536? 586. Miriam, you got to save me. Okay. Please rise. Thank you. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamelachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim ve'yosei haaretz umoshav yikaro b'shamayim imal ushchinatu zo begove meromim hu Eloheinu Einod. Let all who dwell on earth acknowledge that unto you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you, Adonai, our God, let them pay homage. Let them give glory to your honored name. Let all accept the yoke of your reign, that you may rule over us soon and forever, for sovereignty is yours. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be seated. As we get ready to say Mourner's Kaddish and remember our loved ones, I just want to make sure, is there anybody in the room who is in a recent period of mourning, 30 days, or anybody here? Yes, go ahead. When did Marv pass away? Oh, my goodness. May his memory be a blessing. Okay, for who? Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody online have a yard site to share? Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. Aiden.
Joan Friedman for her first year of mourning.
Okay. We're also remembering, and I may repeat a few of these, Anna Seidman, Scott Talento, Gail Nachman, Mark's mother Carol, Jack Leibovich, Alexa Weiner, Melvin Jass, Ruth Leboff, Hal Hertz, Bruce Talento, Lillian Sussman, Lil Chin, Ben Margol, Irene Kalik, and again Rabbi Chaim Asa, who we'll be remembering tomorrow.
Tehi Zichram Baruch, may their memories endure as a great blessing. The Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudasha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Thank you. So now we're going to pass out the Kiddush. I'm fine with this. So tomorrow, I'll tell you, we have a couple of simchas to celebrate. Not only do we have a scholar, but the choir is going to be here tomorrow. And it's possible, if all goes well, that Candace will have her first aliyah at the Torah. Very excited about that. And also, I'm marrying a couple next week, and they wanted to come and do an ufruf here, and I thought that would be okay with you. So we may have a young couple, which I haven't done one of those years. Yes, and the next week of B'nai Mitzvah, and then the following week of B'nai Mitzvah. So it's life cycle simchas on parade. I invite you to turn to page 122. Vayir vayivoker yom hashishi, vayachulu hashamayim v'haaretz, v'chol tzevam, vayechal Elohim bayom hashi, melachto asher asa, vayishbot bayom hashvi, mikol melachto asher asa, vayevarech Elohim et yom hashvi. Vayekadesh oto, kivo shavat mikol melachto, asher bara Elohim lasot, savri chavirai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, b'yahava uvratzon hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. it's Sylvia, I'll just say that what Miriam said is if that's wine in your cup, she's impressed. And I feel like comfortable saying that there's something in that cup, but it's not wine. I don't know. Could be pomegranate juice, but it's probably not wine. Okay, and we are going to have a closing song. And the question is, this is the all request closing song hour. So, Greg Weitzman, what's your favorite closing song? What do you want to sing? Okay, Meg's going to pass. Sherry? Okay, no, I'm just saying. That's all. Miriam, anything that you dying to hear? Okay, we're going to do so what melody?
Okay, here we go. We're going to reprieve of Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Good Shabbos, everybody. We have Kiddush, Motzi in the other room.